أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبا القاسم محمد. الله وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، لا سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. أما بعد، يقول الله في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كل نفس ذائقة الموت. Every soul shall taste death. صدق الله العلي العظيم. الله Death is one of the beliefs in which it does not matter what your thought process is or what your religion, your creed. Every single human that is sane, that comprehends, understands, it doesn't matter what you believe in, you need to believe in death. You can be Muslim, Christian, believing in Judaism, or not having a religion altogether. The one thing that you know for certain is that death will come to you, if not today, tomorrow. Knowing this, we understand it's going to inflict each and every one of us at one stage of our life, to ourselves personally, but before it, many of us would have experienced someone around us experiencing death. And for those few moments that we are in and around those people, we'll find within ourselves, it might have struck a chord, it might have changed something within us. But as time goes by, you'll find everything that we promised ourselves once we see that close person and what they went through and their families, we return back towards our old habits, not taking the example that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed in front of us. Understanding this, we need to look at particular traditions that come forward and say that the angel of death circulates each and every household 5 times. In a span of a day, the angel circulates each and every one of us 5 times. That in itself should make us realize that at any moment, our name may appear on that particular lawh that the angel of death is holding. And that's why when we come past tradition saying that for the human, there are 3 hours within their life that will be the most difficult. The hour in which he is resurrected and stands in front of the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That 1 hour within their grave, and that hour in which the angel of death is extracting their soul. Now we take all these things into consideration. We ask ourselves, why is it then that we're not concentrating and allowing this particular concept to change the way that we live our life? Because the way in which we live our life may be in a state where we think that we may be eternal, that we're living forever, that we work for the dunya. As Rasulullah would state, work for your dunya as if you're living forever, but work for your akhirah as if you're dying when? Tomorrow. The understanding is we may have been looking at one side of that particular equation as if we're living forever and we work and work and work. But the other side, the fact that we may die tomorrow, how many of us are ready for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to extract our souls? Because if we were, we'd be in a very different place mentally, physically, community-wise, if we instill that within our lives. Now, understanding the importance of such a topic, we want to delve into particular points in which may inspire us to change our life. Because if we understand what's ahead of us, we'll understand how fast we actually need to change and how we should change in that perspective. So the first thing we're going to look at tonight is the process of the extraction of the soul itself. Many of us would hear that the extraction process is a very painful process indeed. And that's why we need to look at this particular process and see, are there things within our traditions that suggest that a believer, as an example, will have an easy extraction? And likewise, is there anything in the traditions about a disbeliever and their particular extraction process? And what do we know about the death of the angel of death? Because many of us would know, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. But if the angel of death himself is the one that's extracting, who and how will the soul of the angel of death be extracted? And what can we learn from that particular narration that we have? Number two, the extraction process. How is it that a believer would be able to see the angel of death? And how would a disbeliever see the angel of death? And does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punish those believers that have bad deeds? And likewise, how does Allah reward people that are going towards the hellfire, but they may have good deeds? As an example, someone may come forward and say, well, this is a disbeliever. Allah is just. Can you please explain to me how, with the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that this person, even though he doesn't believe in God, he's done many a great thing. He's sponsored orphans. He's given his wealth out. He's good towards his parents, etc., etc. Now the question is Allah just? If He is, then where is the recompense for people that are going towards hellfire but have done good deeds? Number three, when the soul is extracted, what do we know about barzakh? Is barzakh in the earth or is it in the heaven? And the good souls, do they go to a particular place? The bad go to a particular place? Or do they all go into the same location? Number four, how can we access, or what are the different aspects of accessing the souls in barzakh? Is it there only one access, or there are different types of access to those souls in barzakh? And finally, what is a tradition we need to look into tonight to understand how to apply the concept of death within our life? So inshallah, taking this important topic into perspective and trying to learn as much as we can from the words of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt, please help me in blessing the majlis with 3 of your loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The extraction process. We go towards traditions and it tells us there may be a difference between how the souls are extracted from a believer and how the souls are extracted from the disbelievers. Amongst the traditions that we have for a soul to be extracted from a believer, amongst them, one of them would come forward and say, for a believer, it's like smelling a fragrant flower. Fragrant flower. If a believer, his soul's been extracted, it's as if he's smelling a flower. Other traditions come forward and say it's like living in this world has chained the believer. So you have chains, and it's as if Allah, when He extracts your souls, those chains fall off you. That's how you feel. Others say that in this world, it's as if you're wearing dirty clothes. When the angel extracts your souls, it's as if you're taking off the dirty clothes and putting new, clean clothes instead. So you have one portion that suggests to us that the believers have this type of extraction. On the flip side, there are extractions that we have access to that suggest for a disbeliever. So I don't want to mention the far away ones where it's quite graphic, especially with youth here today. I'll mention a few, not so graphic. The first of which, they say, imagine for a disbeliever, for his soul being extracted, it's as if a person has nail clippers made of fire and is pinching every part of your body until your soul's extracted. One. Another would come forward and suggest that it's as if there is a pin, there is a massive door that you cannot fathom with its weight. That door rests upon a pin, and that pin rests within your eye, and it rotates and rotates and rotates. That kind of pain is what will be felt when the extraction will be there for the disbelievers. Now, we may have a question now, because when we go towards particular traditions, as an example, we go to a tradition between the angel of death and Nabi Allah Musa. When the angel of death comes towards Nabi Allah Musa in the tradition, he comes to him, and as the angels do when they see the prophets, some of them visit, some of them speak to them, some of them advise them, some of them, just kind of hang out and chill. Sometimes the angel comes forward to speak to you. Other times he comes to extract your soul. So every other angel, the prophets are like at ease. But when the angel of death comes, they're kind of like, is it one or two? So Musa's asking him, are you coming as a visitor or a qabid? Are you here to see me, visit me, or are you here to extract my soul? He says, no. This visit, O Musa, is the extraction. He says, okay. Amongst the long tradition, when he gets to it, he says, where will you extract my soul from? So in the tradition it says that he says, I'll extract it from your feet. Musa replies by saying, how can you when I walk towards the Holy Land? He says, okay, I'll extract it from your hand. He says, how can you with all the miracles that I performed? He says, I'll extract it from your tongue then. He says, how can you when I am known as Kalimullah and this tongue spoke to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So every time he says something, he has an excuse. So he gives him, in the tradition, a fruit called a naranj. When he gives him the fruit, he says, Musa, smell it. So Musa smells it in the tradition, and the angel extracts the soul. They ask Musa, what did you feel in that extraction process? To us, you're just smelling a fruit, soul's extracted. He says, I felt like I've been skinned. But hold on, he's a prophet of Allah. You just told us for the believers that they may have it easy. Doesn't make sense. Likewise, when we have the tradition, when Isa speaks towards his mother, oh my mother, Mother Maryam, I can resurrect the dead. Shall I resurrect you as well? When he speaks to her, what does she say? She says, my son Isa, the taste of sakaratul maut still on my tongue. Still on my tongue. That the only reason I'd come back is to fast in the heat of the day and worship in the long nights. Then question is, how come the one of the greatest women ever to walk this earth, as well as one of Ulul Azm, felt pain in the extraction process? We come forward with the argument that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just when He causes pain upon someone, one of two reasons. Either you have sins that Allah wants to remove from you. He puts pain in your life. So many of us would look within our lives before we die. We may have sicknesses, things that put us into distressful situations, things that are very hurtful to us. We may lose someone, we may have a sickness, something may occur within the workforce, wealth will be taken away from us that we are in need of. All these things are ways in which Allah seeks to purify us. Meaning, either we have a sin Allah is trying to remove from us, or if you are sinless, like we can look at Musa alayhi salam as well as Sayyidina Maryam, that pain that is caused is to elevate them in rank in the hereafter. So you have these two notions: removal of sin or elevation in status. And that's why when we come and understand the next equation, will the believers and the disbelievers actually have the same process that is painful or not? Because as we stated, some people that are going towards hell have good deeds. So the argument is there. The argument suggests that for a believer that has sins, for the believers that have sins, Allah may make sakaratul maut more painful on them, in order when you enter barzakh or you come towards the hereafter, Allah saying, I already punished you for your sins, go straight towards heaven. Likewise, He's saying for the disbelievers, their final abode is where? Hellfire. When their final abode is hellfire, they may have done good deeds in their life. When they've done good deeds, Allah is saying, you know what? I need to gift you something to reward you for those good deeds that you've done. So therefore, when it comes to sakaratul maut, you're not going to feel a thing. That fact that you're not feeling anything, when it comes towards the judgment day, you say, oh Allah, I've done good deeds. Allah can turn around and say, well, I've already rewarded you by not causing you any pain in sakaratul maut. I've already rewarded you by not giving you a harsh punishment within your barzakh. Now that you have come and attained your reward, you go straight towards hellfire. The understanding is there. So inshallah, there's people coming in. If I can request everyone to come as far forward as possible, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So in that perspective, we have a notion from Nabi Allah Ibrahim. Nabi Allah Ibrahim, when the angel of death comes to him, he asks the angel of death, he says, oh angel of death, oh my friend Azrael, can you tell me, what does a disbeliever see when you come towards him? What does he see? So he says, Ibrahim, you won't be able to handle it. He says, no, show me. Understandably so, that Ibrahim was one of the greats, wasn't he? That if anyone could handle seeing something and still have faith and steadfastness on the path of Allah, that nothing should shake them, it's Ibrahim, wouldn't it be? So Ibrahim's like, you know what, I've attained a high rank. I'm known as the friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't think anything can shake me of what I can see. So the angel says, okay. He says, turn around and then look back towards me. I'll be in the form that the disbeliever sees. So he looks away and then he looks back towards the angel, and the tradition says he faints. He faints. When he regains consciousness, he sees the angel of death again in the correct form. He says, what have I seen, O Israel? He says, that's what the disbeliever sees. Look at the wording of Ibrahim, the prophet of God. He says, if Allah did not punish at all, nothing, no punishment, seeing the angel is enough punishment as it is. Just seeing the angel, enough punishment as it is. And that's why we understand with sakarat al-maut needs to be taken seriously. When Allah says to the angel of death in the tradition, O angel of death, how many people are left in the world? He says there's only 4 angels left. 4 angels. The last remaining 4. He says, who remains, O Israel? Azrael will say, myself, Jibra'il, Mikael, Israfil. He says, only us 4 remain. So the tradition goes on to say, oh angel of death, go in, take life one after the other. All 3 of them. So the tradition says that Azrael goes towards Jibra'il. How does he extract the soul? The tradition says that he embraces him. When he embraces him, extracts his soul, Jibra'il falls on the floor. Likewise, hugs Mikael, Israfil. 3 hugs. 3 of them drop onto the floor. Then Allah says to him, who is left? He says, just me, O Allah. What's he going to do? There's a tradition that says, which is a weak tradition, that says Allah has 2 mountains that collapse upon the angel of death and his soul is extracted. Second tradition says that Allah says, kun fayakun. So Allah says in that moment, kun fayakun. Soul, extract, it was extracted. The tradition says that the angel of death screamed such a scream. By the way, there's no one there. No one was alive except him. He screamed such a scream. Had anyone been alive, they would have died just hearing it. Such was the scream of the angel of death. And he was saying, had I known the pain, I would not have extracted one soul. Angel of death. So now we begin to analyze, okay, so it's a serious concept. that there is a massive pain that's associated. That particular extraction to the next realm. How can we prepare for such a thing? You know, when we say to ourselves, there's only a few things that we take with us to the grave. You know, that our money and wealth and everything we accumulate, you know what it's going to get us? A coffin. Shroud. All the money in the world is going to get you a shroud. That's all you're going to take with you to the next world. If you used money in good means, sadaqah jariyah, that counts as your a'mal. Doesn't count as something you can take with you. Wealth, no. Shroud. The family that you've raised, that you've helped, that you've surrounded yourself with, that you've grown in the righteousness of following the Ahlul Bayt, they'll take you towards your grave. They may come and visit you 5, 10, 15 years. They may forget about you 20 years. Let's say 50. Your grandchildren maybe will visit you once, God knows, every Eid. But let's say 1, 2 generations down, no one even remember your name. And there's only one thing that will remain with you, and that's your actions that you take. And that's why when we analyze barzakh and going towards the grave, the notion is that we understand when we are placed within the grave, after the soul's extracted, that Allah questions us. And when He questions us, the interesting concept there is, when He asks us, who is your Lord, who is your Prophet, your Imam, your book, we understand when Rasulullah would bury the mother of Ali ibn Abi Talib in his own shirt and places her in her grave, comes out, what does he say? He says, not Aqil or Ja'far, Ali, Ali. The understanding there is there was questioning in the grave. When there's questioning, you need to have an answer. Now, our concept may be that our answer should be things that we memorize. No. Anyone can memorize that this is your Lord, this is your Prophet, your Imam. Everyone can memorize that. But in traditions, your tongue doesn't speak, and you've spoken enough. Let your manifestation speak now. Allah, you understand He's your Lord. How much have you applied that within your life? You understand the Prophet, but how much have you put his sunnah into your life? You've understood Ali ibn Abi Talib as your Imam. How much have you actually followed in his footsteps? And how much have you followed the others? You've understood the Quran is your book. How much have you read and implemented within your life? If you want to answer in the grave, you need to have first applied it within your life. It's not just enough to utter or memorize. No. Your manifestation within your life will speak on your behalf. And that's why, if you do not have the answers, those 2 angels that are questioning you will be known as Munkar and Nakir, because you don't want them there. But if you have the correct answers, they're not called Munkar and Nakir. They're called Mubashir and Bashir, giving you glad tidings of what lies ahead. If you can answer those questions. Now, once we've answered, we are either opened into the door, into a gate of heaven, or a door towards a hellfire, in something we call barzakh. Barzakh, for all those that do not know, the realm between when you die until Allah resurrects us. Some of us may think that it may be in the heavens. Some of us may be of the opinion that this particular area is under the ground. Why? Because they say that we're buried under the ground. Therefore, the barzakh takes place under the ground. But that's not the understanding. The understanding that we have is that when your body is buried in the grave, your soul, after the questioning, is removed completely. And tomorrow we're going to talk about the soul in more depth. But it lingers. There's lingers. Why? Before it's removed completely, because you need to answer the questions within the grave. And it's completely removed after you're put into barzakh. Now, barzakh, not in the heavens, not on the earth. Not under the earth, sorry. It's on the same planes that you and I are on. Same planes. This earth, the same place that you and I walk, those souls in barzakh walk as well. But there is a veil. Barzakh, what does it mean? When you go towards Surah Al-Rahman, بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. Barzakh means veil. They live on the same plane as you and I, but there is a veil between you and them. You do not see it. They do not see you. Lest Allah allows it. Now we take that into consideration. They're on the same place that we are. There is a veil. Are the good souls in one place and the evil souls in another? Or is it all in the same place? Traditions, what do they tell us? They tell us that for a believer, wherever you may die in the world, your soul, if its ultimate abode is heaven, that your soul will be taken by the angels towards a place known as Wadil Salam. And wherever you may die around the world, if your soul's eternal abode is hellfire, it goes towards Wadi Barahut. And we know the traditions that tell us Wadi Salam is the neighboring area of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Allah. Wadi Barahut, people may ask the question, where is Wadi Barahut then? Imam al-Baqir, one of the people come from the outskirts of Medina, they enter. And Imam asks him, where have you come from? He says, oh Imam, from a faraway place. He replies by saying, doesn't matter how far it is, it's still on this earth, isn't it? He says, yeah. He goes, I've come from this particular part of the world. He says, on your journey, did you come across a place in Yemen where there's 2 palm trees and under it there is a valley? And that is where the palm trees, everyone rests and takes shelter and shade. Behind it is a dark valley. He says, yes. He says, that is Wadi Barahut. He says, what did you see there? He says, the darkness there, no one enters. That it's known to have all sorts of animals and sounds. And at night especially, we hear voices that makes us afraid to be next to it. So the concept there is that it's understood there and then that that is where the evil souls are punished. Now someone will have the question, is all barzakh the same? Or is it different in an understanding? We hear tradition saying that barzakh may be from when a person dies all the way until we are resurrected. As in the first person, or the person that has the longest barzakh, let's say, is Habil, because he was killed by Qabil. And therefore the first person that died will have the longest barzakh. That could be opinion. And the person that has the shortest barzakh is the person that dies just before Allah resurrects everyone. That's one opinion. There's another opinion that suggests no, every single person's barzakh is very different to the other. Why? They say that people that are righteous, their barzakh will be, to them, appear fast, because they're enjoying it. The people that their final abode is hellfire, what they experience makes it seem like that barzakh is so long. In the understanding, Nabi Allah Isa, when we come towards Nabi Allah Isa's stories, as we understand, he resurrects the dead. When he resurrects the dead, he gives us examples to learn from. One of the examples, he comes past a particular grave. This grave just been set into place. A youth just died, just buried him. So amongst his disciples, he says, let me teach you a little bit about this world, this realm after this world. So with the permission of Allah, he resurrects that youth that was just buried. And look at what he asks him. He says, oh man, tell us what happened. How long have you been there? By the way, the disciples, when he resurrected him, he's saying to them, he's a youth. He came back as an elderly man. Old man. He says, oh Ruh Allah, as soon as I've been buried all those years ago, I've been punished with the hellfire until you resurrected me. But for us in this realm, he's been buried moments ago. Fresh. Moments ago. When he's resurrected, he's saying that I've been punished for years in the hellfire. 1. 2, he says he came past the grave. He didn't even know it was a grave. It was nearly like with the ground. How old it was. So he says, with the permission of Allah, he brings him back to life. They saw a man. They asked him, how long have you been here? He says, Ya Ruh Allah, once my soul was extracted, he says, I was given a pearl necklace. When I was trying to put it on, it ripped. When it ripped, I'm trying to collect those pearl pieces, and then you resurrected me. So he's saying that example should give us an indication that every single person may have a very different barzakh to the other. The traditions that we do have as well states that those people that goes towards Wadi Salam, if Allah would unveil for us to see what occurs there, it's as if people are sitting in groups, speaking, learning, being taught, being in a state of happiness. And that's why when we say, for example, if a person, let's say, passed away before, and then you pass away after, you come towards Wadi Salam, for example, you ask about that particular person. How is this person? Have you seen him? If they were to say, yes, he's over there in that particular corner with that particular group, you go and say hi to him. But if they say, we haven't seen him, what does that mean? He's not in this group, is he? He's not in this particular wadi. He's on the other wadi. Ahsant. So there are different concepts when it comes to this. That it could be this, it could be that. But these are all traditions. All of which should tell us that we need to try our best to not be of the sinners, to not end up on that particular wadi, to not be filtered through punishment to go towards heaven, that we want to stay away from punishment as much as we can. Now someone will ask, do we have access to the souls in barzakh? Very interesting question. Amongst the different traditions, there are 3 different ways that there may be access towards barzakh. The first of which, we all may experience it, alam al-ru'ya, land of the dreams. That particular notion is that you may see someone that has passed away. When you see that person, sometimes you see them in a good state to send a message that, I'm in a good place. Other times you may see them distressed, need of help, needing of assistance, needing of guidance, needing of someone to carry out something that they may not have written in their will, not have done or accomplished within their life, and will tell you what to do in their afterlife. As an example, how delicate this world is, by the way. One of the scholars, the student narrates, he says, he was one of the scholars that we had that no one had a problem with him. Amazing scholar. Amazing. He says no one had anything bad to say about him. His janazah, mashallah, the people that came. He says one day I saw him in my dreams. I saw him in a bustan. Bustan, it's like a garden from heaven, let's say, in barzakh. When he sees him, he's saying, mashallah, you've done well for yourself. Like all this is for you. He goes, yeah, alhamdulillah. I've lived a very good life worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, we spoke. When we're speaking, all of a sudden, the entire atmosphere within his bustan changes. When it changes, he says, I saw in my teacher's eye the likes I've never seen in my life. He says, what happened? Darkness, and from the edge of the bustan, a small bee came. It came. He says, my master was paralyzed. His tongue came out. The bee stung him. He says he was in pain. As the bee left, so did that particular atmosphere. Went back towards the heaven that he was in. So he says, my master, what's going on there? He says, to be honest, there's something that I've done, and I need my wife to forgive me for it. And if she forgives me, this bee no longer comes. Our actions, when we leave them, they manifest this world, hereafter. So he says, I woke up from my dream. I went straight towards my teacher's house, knocked on the door. Bismillah, Bismillah. Is this the residency of Fulan? They said, yes. Can I speak to his wife, please? Bismillah. Wife comes in. How was your husband? He's a great man, great man. Please tell me, do you have anything against him? Is there any problem? She goes, no, it's beautiful. He goes, no, he's being punished in his barzakh. There's something that you're not telling me. She goes, to be honest, there's this one thing. So there is something, he says, one thing, but it's not that big. He says, what is it? He says, I'm an elderly lady. And the scholar, mashallah, he hasn't wronged me. He goes, but in my life, when we go towards my parents' house, when we're around family members, she says, my name is Fatima. He says, I tell him, he doesn't call me Fatima in front of my family, he calls me Fattum. Sometimes you give romantic words towards your spouse. Like Muhammad, you call him Hamoud, for example. Ali, Allawi, Allush, however you have it. He's saying, in this notion, her name is Fatima, but he's trying to show that, like we're close. Romantically, maybe, he calls her Fattum. She says, I keep telling him, don't do it. And he keeps doing it. Not out of a place of, hurtfulness, out of a playful place, out of goodness. He goes, but it hurt me nonetheless. That I kept that in my heart. That something keeps doing annoyed me. He says, this and this is happening to him in his barzakh. From a word. Not from a bad place from his heart. From a good place. But it's affected someone in a bad manner. She says, if that's what's happening, Baba, I forgive him. The next night he sees his master. He says, thank you so much. That she's forgiven me and now I have a complete sense of heaven from where I am in. The understanding we need to take from that particular story is make sure everything you do doesn't matter. Rather be the oppressed than the oppressor. Ensure your life is lived in such a manner that no one has anything against you. Because whomever it may be, we're only here for a few years on this earth and we have an eternal abode waiting for us. Eternal abode. The first is alam al-ru'ya. The second is alam al-mukashafa. Mukashafa literally means removing the veils. That access remains in the hands of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the righteous people, the imams, the prophets. They are able to remove the veils. How many times do we hear about the story when Ali ibn Abi Talib is in the land of Siffin and he speaks towards his companions? And he's speaking, where is this person? Where is that? And the people around him would say, how are you speaking? He says, I hear them, you do not. There is a removal of a veil between Amir al-Mu'mineen and them because of his rank in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many traditions in this category, but we don't have time for them tonight because we want to get to the gist. The third way we can go and see them in Alam al-Ru'ya. We have access, if we're righteous, to remove the veils. The third is they visit us. Now, very interesting concept. We say Thursday nights that the souls may come to visit their loved ones. So a soul, Allah may give it permission, depending on how righteous it is or the actions it's done, you may be able to visit family once every year to see them. The souls may be able to visit a month, every week maybe once, maybe. But with a righteous soul, that its eternal abode is heaven, when Allah allows that soul to see its family, the way in which it sees its family, pleasing to the heart. So when that good soul goes towards the families, Allah only allows it to see that which is good. Your family may be enjoining good, forbidding evil. Maybe in a state of salah, maybe fasting, maybe on the prayer mat, maybe in a gathering together, maybe a nikah, for example, that families are getting someone married. Never will they see anything that displeases their soul. And on the flip side, a soul in which its eternal abode is hellfire, when they visit their family, the traditions say that they visit them and they only see that which displeases and hurts their soul. Extra layer of punishment. When that soul sees the family, they may see it doing that which is bad, looking at that which is bad, being around those people that are bad, acting in a manner which is bad, which hurts the soul in an extra level. Now the point I want to take from this particular notion, what did we say? We said a good soul may be able to visit family more frequently depending on the level that it has in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for a righteous person, not necessarily every week, The shuhada, as an example, the shuhada may be or are able to visit whomever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want. For the shuhada. Now if we add that together, just imagine this. We add one and one together, and we understand لا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أموات بل عند ربهم يرزقون. Take that into perspective, that those that die in the path of Allah are not dead. They're in a high status that Allah blesses them. Amongst the blessings is that you may go towards anywhere at any time. When we say Fatima is in a majlis, what do we mean? When we say Ali came towards Zainab, you see how it begins to make sense all of a sudden? It's not under a category where we don't have any precedent behind it. No. There is reasoning of why we say the things that we do. When we have the tradition saying mutu qabla an tamutu, what does that mean? Die before you die. Yeah, Imam, how can we die before we die? So no, imagine you are dead right now. What would you need to have done in order for you to prepare yourself? You need to pay that one back. You need to do this particular a'mal. You need to write your will. Mutu qabla an tamutu. Make sure that you're prepared for death before death arrives at your footstep. The understanding is there. Are we prepared? Or are we still owing people, owing Allah? That's the thing that we need to take tonight before Muharram or the 10th goes by. Let's see, what have we brought forward? What are we owing between us and Allah, between us and the people? When we go towards our barzakh, what are the things that we're going to be punished for? Who are the people that we have oppressed? Who are the people that we need to seek forgiveness from? Let's put it all in front of us. Before we open that book, let's write a book for ourselves. Be prepared. Amongst those that were prepared for death is the man that we commemorate tonight. Aba Fadl al-Abbas. I just want you to imagine a few things. When they brought the bounty of war or the booty of war after they've stolen it from the Ahl al-Bayt in Karbala, they threw it all in front of Yazid. Yazid's eye fell upon a particular flag. Why did that eye of Yazid fall on a flag? He says these particular words. He says to these companions, who's that flag for? They say, that's the flag of Abu Fadl al-Abbas. You know what it says? It says, أَبَيْتَ اللَّعْنْ يَا عَبَّاسِ فَمِثْلُكَ لَا يُشْتَمْ. You know why? It says, you are a personality that no one should ever curse nor say anything bad about. Why? It says, when you looked at that flag, every single inch of the flag either had a rip or a cut or a strike from the sword, except one, al-miqbad, where it was held by the hand of Abbas. Everything else was struck. Everything else was struck. Look at how firm he held onto that flag of Aba Abdullah. You'll find Abbas in Karbala. You know what they would come to him? They would bring a covenant saying, Abbas, we give you safety and your brothers. Shimr says, he's a covenant. You know what Abbas says? He says, Ya Shimr, you give me safety while the son of Fatima doesn't have safety. Shimr, do I leave a person? Look at the words. Shall I leave a person whom Allah created me for? Shimr, who you're talking to? Abbas, I want you to imagine the last person that was left alongside Abu Abdullah was his brother. Abbas was the only person. You know why? They said for two reasons. The first is when people would look at the camp of Imam al-Hussain, when they saw Abbas, they would be afraid. They said, Hussain has Abbas, and we're not coming next to us. The second reason is that when the ladies would look out, they would say, Abbas is still alive, the protector. Two reasons. Every time he would come, Hussein, give me permission, please, I cannot bear it. Hussein would say, no, oh Abbas, you are my army, you're one person. But to me, you're an entire army. You are my backbone, oh Abbas. Abbas would go, come and ask, no. Until he'd go towards the tents. When he'd go towards the tents, imagine the heart of Abbas, hearing the cries of the orphans of Hussein. Hearing the ladies in the tents mourning over their children, seeing everyone screaming, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, the thirst is killing us. He would see, for example, the 6-month-old that hasn't had any milk for days. He would see all the ladies amongst them. There would be a lady that would hold on to Abbas by the name of Sakina. She would say, Amya Abbas, we are thirsty. Abbas, how can you handle seeing such a thing? Again, it come towards Hussein. Oh, Aba Abdullah, my master Hussein, will you not give me permission to go? He says, Abbas, I do not give you permission to fight, but go, I give you permission to bring the water to the children and women. Just go and bring water, oh Abbas. Hussein doesn't give permission to fight. Just get the water, oh Abbas. So Abbas brings the qurba for the ma. Abbas mounts his horse. Abbas, before he goes towards the Euphrates, imagine Abu Fadl Abbas. His eyes would gaze back towards the tents. His eyes would gaze on Hussein. His eyes would gaze upon the ladies. His eyes would gaze upon Zainab. For a final time, he'd go towards the battlefield. This is where the musibah starts, brothers and sisters. When he's going, they say 4,000 archers stopped the way between him and the Euphrates. Abu Fadl Abbas wants to get to the water because that's what he wants to bring back towards the tents. He goes through these 4,000, pushing them aside until Abbas comes towards the water. Imagine Abbas in the water. He fills the qurba. When he fills it, imagine 3 days without any water in the heat of Karbala. His hand, as he's filling the water, feels the coldness of the water on his hand. They say Abbas lifted the water to look at the water. Never for a second did he think about drinking. How can he when he knew his brother Hussein was thirsty? He picks up that cool water from the Euphrates. He says, Ya nafsu min ba'd al-Hussein. Huni. Oh my soul, what existence do you have after Hussein? This is your existence. He throws the water back in the Euphrates. He takes that water that he filled, places it on the horse, grabs that flag of his, and goes towards Abu Abdullah. They say Umar ibn Sa'd would tell the people, make sure you do not let the water get towards the tents of Hussein. For by Allah, if the water comes towards Hussein, he will finish each and every one of you. Do not allow him. So the armies begin to come around Abbas from every angle. Abbas is fighting, he's striking them. They become afraid of Abbas. They cannot face him one-on-one, face-to-face. So what do? They surround Abbas. Of them that hides behind the palm tree. Abbas, as he's striking the people, that man from behind the palm tree would jump and he would strike the right hand of Abbas. He cuts off the right hand of Abu Fadl al-Abbas. He would say, Wallahi, inqata'tumu yamini. إني أحامي أبدا عن ديني. By Allah, if you cut off my right hand, I will defend my religion. Abbas would take the sword. He will continue with his left hand. Again, another man would hide behind another palm tree. As Abbas is attacking, defending, well, that man would jump in front and strike the left hand. He will strike the left hand of Abbas. Abbas without a right, without a left. What does he do? He says, it doesn't bother me that I don't have my hands. All that I want is to take this particular water to the tents of Hussain. So what does he do? He holds the water between his legs and goes towards the tents of Abu Abdullah. When he is going, Umar ibn Sa'ad would say, shower him with arrows. They would say, of the arrows would strike Abu Fadl al-Abbas in his chest. Of the arrows would strike Abbas in his eyes. That didn't hurt Abbas. You know the one that hurts Abbas? He would say in the traditions, the one that would strike the qirba to make the water fall. That's the one that hurt Abu Fadl al-Abbas. When the arrow would strike the water would gush out. I want you to imagine, Abbas, all he wants is the water for Hussain. He's standing there on the plains of Karbala. He's saying, I don't have my right. I don't have my left. I cannot see because I have an arrow in my eye. What do I do? The water is spilling on the sands. They would say that one in his eye hurt Abbas. That arrow in the eye hurt. So what does he do? They would say that with his two legs, he brings his head down to remove the arrow from his eye. At that very moment, Abbas is tall. At that very moment, Ya Mu'mineen, a person comes forward with a pole and strikes the head of Abbas. When he would strike the head of Abbas, Abbas would fall. But how? Sayyidah Fatima comes to one of the ulama in a dream. She would say, I want you to narrate this about Abbas. I want you to tell everyone about my son Abbas. Tell them when he fell off the horse. That's when it hurt me, Zahra. How? She would say, tell them when a person would fall, he would break the fall with his hands. Abbas doesn't have hands. When he fell on his face. That arrow goes deeper into the eye of Abbas. When Abbas would fall, he would say, Akhi ya Hussain. My brother. He never said brother until this moment. Only then did he have the pleasure and the sweetness of saying, my brother Hussain. Hussain would run towards Abbas, but Hussain would fall twice. Why? Twice Hussain would fall. They would say, Hussain, why did you fall twice? They would say, because he was connecting the two hands of Abbas. He gets to Abbas. Abbas has an arrow in his eye. The blood seeps and dries on the other one. He couldn't see. He would hear footsteps coming close. He would say, by the one that you worship, do not kill me. I want my brother Hussain to come so I may smell him. And he smells me so I may say goodbye to him and him to me. He would say, brother, it's Hussain. The poets describe this motion. They would say Hussain would place the head of Abbas in his lap. Abbas would move his head. Again, Hussain puts it in his lap. Again, Abbas moves it. Hussain saying, oh Abbas, I'm putting you on my lap. Why do you move your head? Look at the brotherhood. He would say, Hussain, I know my head's in your lap now. But in a few moments, where will your head be, oh Hussain? leave me here. Do not take me back towards the tents. Because Sakina, Hussain, leave the arrow in my eye. Why? I don't want this eye to see Zainab taken captive. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un.